Parents, I have something to tell you. So if your autistic child is constantly jumping off the couch, spinning, putting everything into their mouth, they're not being bad kids. They're just sensory seekers. And today I'm going to tell you everything I know about sensory seeker kids so that you can help your child go from bouncing off the walls to have a better understanding about their brain and their body. And without getting upset, because let's be honest, you're a busy mom or a busy dad, and the last thing that we need is for you to be trying to teach your child something new and for them to become upset. That's no fun. They don't like it, you don't like it. So I like to keep things simple and fun. By the way, I'm Sergio. I'm an occupational therapist and I work with autistic kids every single day in my private practice. My only goal for today is for you to steal my knowledge so you can use that at home with your son or your daughter. That way, next time that you play with them, they can learn something new. And I hope you get the enjoyment that I get when I get to see my patients learn a new skill. Also, by the end of this video, I'm going to show you my number one strategy that I use so my patients become a little bit less impulsive, but at the same time, we will be respecting their sensory needs. So let's start. I'm going to start by drawing myself as a baby. So this is me as a child, something like it. And your child has 5 senses that we know, but in addition, we also have 3 unique senses that we don't talk as often, but they do play a big role in our lives. So I'm going to start with explaining the 5 typical senses that we all know of. So we have our sight, our hearing, our smell, our taste, and our touch. Those are the 5 senses that we all know of. And we also have 3 other senses, but I'm just going to cover 2 because those are the biggest ones that I see with my sensory seeker kids. So we have balance. It's also inside our ears. It's like what tells us if you're upside down or you're moving fast or you're moving slow. We also have the body awareness. This tells us like if you close your eyes, my hand is holding a marker. If I do this, I know my hand is behind my back. So that tells us where our body is in space at all times. Now we're going to pretend that my younger self becomes a cup. And now we're going to pretend that all my senses are going to be drops of water going into my cup. Now, as I go about my day, I'm going to see things, hear things, taste different things, and slowly but surely, I start filling up my cup. But in the case of the sensory seekers, they don't have a cup this size. They have a massive cup. So for them, they can do the same routine I do every single day. But instead of filling the cup all the way to the top, just like mine, their cup is only here. And at this point, they're like, wait a second. I'm not ready. I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel calm. So what do they do? They start seeking more water or more input, more senses, and they try to activate all their senses so they can get more water into their cup. And that way they go from this level higher and higher and higher the more they do their activities. And of course, this is not easy because some of my kids are still learning about their body. And on top of that, they're still learning how to communicate their needs. So they're not going to come to you and tell you, like, Mom, I feel like my cup is half empty. I need to jump a little bit more. They're working towards that, but they're not there yet. So we have to do the work at watching our kids and knowing, like, oh, that tells me that we're not ready to work at the table. So let's do a little bit more activities before we start doing handwriting at the table. Because if not, remember, they're trying to get more input, so they're going to be at the table, and that's why they're touching everything because they are not ready yet. So step number 1 is to recognize the signs, meaning what sense are they activating with their behaviors. I'll make it super easy. I'm going to give you different scenarios that I typically see, and then you start thinking, okay, what sense are they activating? And I'll give you the answer, so it's going to be super easy. So some of my patients, they love to dig their hands into the diapers. So what sense are they using? More than likely, their touch. This one. Now, how about if your kid is constantly putting things into their mouth, mouthing everything, chewing on their shirt, trying to eat things that they shouldn't be eating? That's probably going to be, we're talking about their taste. They want more. They're exploring. What if your child is always smelling their food, smelling socks? I swear, I do have a patient that does that. But that is only because he's seeking more input through their olfactory system or the smell, their nose. Now, I have a different patient that whenever we sit down, he has to touch everything. That one's pretty straightforward, right? That one's, again, touch. I have other patients like as we walk on the hallway, they're always bumping into the wall and bumping into everything, and they love it. So that means that we are activating our body awareness. They want to feel more through the body. Okay, how about spinning, jumping? That one, more than likely, we're talking about most of it being balanced. Some of it might be body awareness, but mostly balance. Again, our inner canals in our ears tells us whether we are spinning, going fast, going slow, or upside down. So they are activating that sense by doing that. I also have other patients that love hugs. They're constantly asking for squeezes on their shoulders, on their head, on their arms. So that one, we are activating their body awareness sense. Now, after going through all that list, I want you to think about your child. What do they do on a daily basis? What senses are they activating? And I want you to ask yourself whether or not those behaviors are appropriate or unsafe. Because for the next step, we're going to channel all that energy into activities and games that they enjoy, that they need because of their sensory needs, while making sure that they are safe. Because it's one thing that they are sensory seekers, but they're still kids. They don't know what's safe yet. So we have to teach them. So, for example, I had a patient that he loved running and crashing into the couch. Unfortunately, he hit his face sometimes by doing that. So we opted to use a crash pad instead. And he loves it. I also have a different patient at school that he would love to pull the string on his sock. So by the end of the day, he had like a massive hole in his sock. So we got him different fidget toys where he can get that sensory need met, but without destroying his clothing. I have patients that love bouncing off the couch. We got him a trampoline, way safer and fun. And I also have kids that love to put things in their mouth that are not safe or appropriate. And in those scenarios, we give them snacks, harder snacks like nuts, pretzels. We find them chewy toys. And we also do more games that involve our mouth, like blowing bubbles on a boat or a pinwheel. Now, for the last step, I do want to share my most important tip about working with sensory seeker kids, because most of my patients that are sensory seekers, they present as impulsive. But again, they are moving a lot because they are trying to fill their cup. And whenever I try to do work when their cup is not filled up, that's when I get my impatient kids. But they're not. They're trying to meet their needs. And the secret is to make sensory seeker kids slow down and think about their movements. And the way that you can teach them about impulse control is to incorporate more gross motor activities, because again, they love moving their body. So let's do more of that, but in a different way. And you're probably thinking, what do you mean by doing gross motor activities in a different way? I'll explain. So, for example, I like incorporating jumping into different color sequences so they are listening to my instructions, but they're still moving their body by jumping into each ring. Also, throwing. Most of my kids are really good throwers, but if you give them a target, they're like, wait, what? What are we talking about? Because they've never done it. And also asking them to balance themselves, either balancing on one leg on dynamic surfaces that move a little bit. So they have to like really focus about balancing themselves. And the whole purpose of incorporating this type of games is for them to slow down a little bit and think about their movements. And again, we are incorporating gross motor activities because they are moving, they love to move, but at the same time, we're making them slow down and think about their movements. And this is how they have fun while learning about impulse control. Also, let me know if you used any of these strategies with your child. I would love to hear if it worked, if it didn't work. That way we can start brainstorming and come up with a solution together. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.